Hey, it's Nikki. I have an update for you guys. I finished some books this week, so let's get started. So, the first book I wanted to share with you guys that I finished this week is Bloodleaf by Crystal Smith. It is a young adult historical fantasy. It's about Aurelia. She is to go and marry the prince of this other city who will unite the two together and end this big war between the two. However, there is a bunch of blood and betrayal. It's discovered that she's a witch, and before she leaves, her people are trying to kill her, and it's just a big ordeal. But there's so many things I really like about this story. Number one, the magic I really thought was well thought out. It was really interesting the way that it worked, the way the history of how this magic evolved and why certain things are in place. I thought the backstory was fantastic. I thought the characters were really deep and developed. The whole story was like layer upon layer upon layer of what everything that's going on and all these different time periods of history and characters that are introduced in certain ways. You get their backstories in different ways that play into the main storyline, and it's just I really got into this story. I gave this 5 stars, and I understand this is a book one in a series, so I definitely look forward to future books in this series. I will say that I got really invested in a lot of the characters, and none of them are safe. Almost everyone dies. It's really crazy. A lot of characters that you come to know are not what you end up thinking they were. And then there are other characters who are not who they tell other people they are. There's just so much going on in this story, and I really enjoyed the story. I think I read it over a 48-hour time span. Like I said, 5 stars on Bloodleaf, so I definitely recommend that one, and I look forward to hearing what you guys thought about that one. The next story that I want to talk about is Romanov by Nadine Brands. So this is another kind of historical fantasy young adult novel, but it's a little bit different because, this is like based on a real story. However, there are some fantasy elements added in. What I felt and what I kind of put in my review, almost all the way through the story, the magic in the book was almost on the level of magic realism. It was healing magic, and I equated it to the use of essential oils, like in a topical fashion, combined with the mind over matter abilities of self-fulfilling prophecy. It really wasn't big and vast and in-depth or just impressive beyond, what relief it could bring to the characters that you come to care about in the story, until you start getting to like 3/4 of the way through the story, where you start getting into the magic of the Matryoshka doll. And when she sets out to find a certain character named Doshkin, however that is pronounced, I thought Doshkin was maybe the most interesting character in the story besides Nastia, which is, of course, Anastasia. I really enjoyed the magic of the story towards the end of the book. I did feel like a lot of the characters were very downplayed, not very developed in the story. There were a lot of characters that were there throughout the bulk of the story that were just kind of mentioned here and there. Like, I didn't feel like there was much of an emotional connection for those characters. Namely, the two oldest sisters, which were Olga and Tatiana. And even Mama, the mother, she has like maybe one scene where she reveals this big secret. But beyond that, it's like they were just kind of there. You know, that you get to the part where the family is taken to this house where they're being exiled in Siberia, and it's I felt like it should have made it out like this was like this horrible time, like they were imprisoned and, you know, being mistreated and starved and all this, but it wasn't like that. It was basically like they were bored out of their minds. Like, that was it. Like, that was the worst of it. They weren't fed, you know, fancy meals by any means, but they were not starved either. They were getting dry bread and broth and whatever, but it didn't seem like a horrible time. They were not isolated. I mean, they were all together. They were able to play games and read books and, you know, spend their half hour outside twice a day that usually ended up being like 90 minutes or whatever. I mean, it wasn't terrible. I felt like it could have been played up a little more than it was. I don't know any 16, 17-year-old teenager who hasn't been cooped up in a house they didn't want to be in for a couple of months at a time or whatever. So beyond that, I loved one of the characters, which was Zosh. He was one of the Bolshevik soldiers who was assigned to guard the royal family while they were exiled. And so he starts out where the family was staying before they were sent to Siberia. He followed them, and he starts out as this character that you think you're gonna hate until you don't. And he ends up surprising me. I felt like that character was written well because he has to do things that he doesn't necessarily agree with, but he has to play his part, and he plays it well, and in some cases a little too well. And when you read the story, you're gonna know what I'm talking about. Wow. And speaking of which, one of the themes in this story that I felt the author wrote in well, sort of like a moral lesson that is really kind of sprinkled throughout the story, especially when you bring in Papa, the father, the king. He really teaches and preaches and emulates forgiveness, and he really tries to push this lesson on his children. We are humble, we forgive, we love our enemies, we love our people, we take care of them. That lesson is going to be challenged to the extent of insane. Like, I don't know that I would be able to forgive in this situation, but the way that it kind of progresses, it was just a good theme throughout this book. I really felt that was done really well. I gave this 4 stars. I felt like I love the story. I would recommend it wholeheartedly. The only reason I couldn't give it 5 stars was the characters that were not really developed as much as maybe they could have been, and the fact that I really didn't think they were suffering all that much in their exile. And just, you know, I would have liked to see more of the magical element throughout the story than was played up. And I felt like up until about the first half of the book, it was kind of slow, not boring by any means, but it just really didn't take off until about halfway through the book. And at that halfway point, things start moving and you really cannot put it down. So 4 stars for Romanov. I can't wait to see you guys reading that book and letting me know what y'all think about that one. So some other books that I'm in the process of reading right now that were on my TBR list, not extra like those last 2 were, that I'm really enjoying right now and I can't wait to bring a review to you guys. The first one is Vicious by V.E. Schwab, and I'm reading that book. I started out listening to the audio, but I found it really hard to keep up with listening to the audio as I'm getting ready and as I'm driving and doing this. Like, I felt like the level of attention to every detail that I need to focus on this story, I have to actually read with my 2 eyes. So the audiobook, while I feel like the narrator who actually produced this audiobook did a really fantastic job, I feel like this is a book for myself that I actually have to sit down and read. And I would say I'm about 50% of the way through it right now. And all I can say is freaking wow. It's dark and it's, what the hell are you people thinking a lot of the time? But it's like, ooh, something is going on here. Something is at play. What do I not know yet? What is this building up to? I'm really excited reading this book. And as soon as I finish making this video and doing all the editing and lovely stuff, I'm going to lay down and read probably the rest of that book today. The second one, which I'm also listening to on audiobook, is Of Blood and Bone by Nora Roberts. Oh my gosh. I knew I was gonna like this book. I read year 1 a few months back. I knew that this book was gonna be exciting, and it's so good so far. I can't even tell y'all, like, I can't wait to get back to you guys with my review on that book. I'm loving it. Loving it, loving it, loving it. So I guess stay tuned for that, and I will come back with you guys. I'm interested in doing some booktube tags. So I have a kind of like a playlist, like a secret one that I am looking at, some that I'm interested in doing. But if there's one that you guys want to see me do, tag it below. I want to see your comments. Subscribe so you can see my reviews, so that you can see my TBR and any of these book tag videos that I will be bringing to you guys very soon. But in the meantime, happy reading, and I hope to hear from you guys. Let me know what you're reading right now, what you're excited about, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.